Hello learners, welcome to Education Online. I'm Regina Massimo, teaching you biology. Our topic of today is units of classification. At the end of the lesson, we'll be able to define units of classification, discuss units of classification, and explain kingdom system. So let us start by the definition of units of classification. Last time we talked about classification, we defined it. Today we are talking about the units of classification. What do we mean by unit of classification? Unit of classification is the group in which living organisms are placed as a matter of convenience. Is a group in which living organisms are placed as a matter of convenience, because when we group them, we give them name, and that name should be the name of that group. We shall learn about that today. So the smallest group of classification is known as species. The largest one known as kingdom. The units of classification, unit of classification which is a group, can be called as taxon if it is single. If it is plural, taxa. Taxa means units of classification. So these units of classification, there are 7. The smallest one is species, the largest one is kingdom. That's why it said there are 7 main taxa into which living organisms are placed. So we start with the smallest one, which is species, followed by genus, coming to family, then order, order, then followed by class, phylum. Phylum is used for definition or for classification of animal. If it is classification of plant, we use division. Then the largest group is kingdom. Then let us discuss these units of classification. In species, this is the group of living organisms that they can interpret. That means they can mate together to produce fertile offspring. That means the group of living organisms, they themselves, they can mate and produce young ones. And those young ones, when they grow, they still come mate together and give rise to another young ones. Like when we take example, like we the human being, man, dog, cow, horse, donkey. These are different species, because we the human being, we don't mate with dog to give young one. We don't mate with horse, or dog doesn't mate with horse to produce young one. Cow doesn't produce with donkey. Donkey produce with donkey, cow produce with cow, dog produce with dog, horse produce with horse. That means these are the different species. Because the species is defined as a group of living organisms that they can interpret and give rise to offspring. And that offspring is fertile. That means when they grow, they also mate and they give rise to new ones. So then there's these different species. The different species, but with a closely related, they can be grouped and put together under genus. That's why genus is defined as a group of living organisms that is made up of different species. Like horse and donkey, they are closely related, so they can be grouped under one genus. But different species under the same genus, they don't produce or they don't mate. If that mating happens suddenly, the young one produced will be sterile. That means cannot produce again, because it is a production between two different species. Like when the horse met with donkey, then they produce an animal, mule. This mule plus another mule will not produce. Why? Because they are not fertile. They are sterile. So that means the group of organisms under the same genus, they don't mate together. That means they don't interpret together. If it happened by chance, the one they produce will be sterile. It's not fertile. This is the example. The mating between horse and donkey will give us mule. So when mule met with mule, they don't produce. Then group of closely related genus, they are grouped and put under family. So family is defined as a collection of genus, group of genus or genera that they share common characteristics. Then group of families will make up order. The group of orders group of orders with the same characteristic will make up what? Class. Group of different classes sharing the same characteristic will make up phylum or division. Then the group of different phyla or divisions will give us kingdom. That's why we say this is the largest group of living organisms. Let's come to see the kingdom system. The largest group, which is kingdom system. All living organisms were mainly divided into two kingdoms. Two kingdoms. Plante and Animalia. All living organisms were grouped into two kingdoms. Kingdom Animalia and Kingdom Plante. But after that, the two kingdoms were further divided into 5 kingdoms. So it became one Kingdom Monera, Kingdom Protesta, Kingdom Fungi, Kingdom Plante, Kingdom Animalia. The criteria which was used to divide the kingdom into 5. They are criteria. Criteria of the classification of kingdom. Number 1, the complexity of cell structure. Complexity of cell structure. Complexity of body. Complexity of the body of living organism. Mode of nutrition. Nutrition. Lifestyle or ecological role. Ecological role, then enter relationship. These are the criteria of classifying living organisms into 5 kingdoms. Interrelationship. So, in the beginning, as I've said, living organisms were classified into Animalia and Plantae. But the scientists came to realize that the living organism can be classified into 5 kingdoms. Monera kingdom, Protista kingdom, fungi, Plantae, and Animalia. And these are the criteria they use for classifying this, because they came to realize that some of the cells, they are very complicated. They are very complicated, and some of them, they are simple. That's why here, the complexity of cell, some of the cells, they don't have clear membrane-bounded organelles. Like mitochondria is not there, like nucleus is not there. When we compare, these are the different type of cells. This is animal cell, this is plant cell, this is bacteria, and this amoeba. When you look at bacteria, this is a cell. But this cell lacks nucleus. Such type of cells known as primitive cell, or another name for that is called prokaryotic cell. Prokaryotic cell. This type of cell is represented by the cell of bacteria. It doesn't have a clear nucleus. No nucleus like this one. This one here, nucleus. This one here, nucleus. This one here, nucleus. But this one has no. So this type of cell is called prokaryotic cell. Another type which contain nucleus, that means clear nucleus and mitochondria, like this one, nucleus is here, mitochondria is here, nucleus is here. This type of cell is called eukaryotic cell. That's why this reason made them to look at the complexity of cells. Then complexity of the body. This is the way the body is organized. You know, the body of living organisms, sometimes it starts by the cell, group of cell, then will lead to the tissue, group of tissue will give us organ, group of organ will give us organ system, group of organ system will give us an individual. So very complex, like when we take the human being, we are made up of group of cells, Then the group of cells gave rise to tissues. Tissues, example of tissues, like this skin is tissue, the blood is tissue, the bone is tissue. So group of different tissue will form organ. Like this hand is organ, kidney is organ, liver is organ. Group of different organ will give us system, like respiratory system, circulatory system. Then the group of different system will give us an individual. So the body is very complicated. Like in a plant, some of the plant, the body starts from the roots, the stem, then the branches. Some of the plants, they don't have all these parts. So the body of the living, the complexity of living organism differ from living organism to another one. Mode of nutrition. This is the way living organism get its food from the surroundings. In the last topic, we talk about that, like plant. Plant makes its own food. That means called autotrophic organism. With the animals, we depend on other animal or we depend on plants for our feeding. So we are called heterotrophic organism. So based on that, we can be having different characteristics. Ecological role. In the ecology, in the ecosystem, living things having their different roles. Like in the ecosystem, you'll find plants are there, animals are there, and the microorganisms like bacteria, fungi, they are there. So each of them having different role in the ecology. Like plant is the one producing food for the animals and for the microorganism like bacteria and fungi. So plant is called producer in the food chain, producer. While animal is called the consumer, is the one consuming. Those of fungi and bacteria, they're decomposers. Decomposers. That means both of animal and plant, when they die, they will be decomposed by these microorganisms. So they have different roles in the ecosystem. Then another criteria, which is interrelationship. These are interactions among different living organisms in their environment. Because living organisms, they are in their environment, they have relationship among them. Some of them, they benefit from each other. You will find two different species benefiting from each other. That type of relationship is called mutualism. Mutualism. This way, two different species, they benefit from each other. Another relationship is called parasitism. This way, two different species, one benefit, but the other one is harm. Like our relationship with Plasmodium, the parasite of malaria, living in our body, its benefit because we are accommodating that one and getting food from our body, but we are feeling sick. That means we are harmed. This relationship of mutualism, like the relationship between crocodile and a certain type of birds, you'll find the crocodile will be outside opening its mouth like that, then that birds come and start what? Cleaning the teeth of the crocodile. That means that bird is getting food from the crocodile, while the crocodile is benefiting by getting the teeth clean by the birds. And there's predators. These are all the different relationships. There are 5 relationships in the interrelationship in the ecology system. So because of that, the kingdom were divided into 5 kingdom. So like kingdom Monera, this include bacteria. This one include bacteria. And this bacteria is characterized by what? Being microscopic. That means it's very tiny, cannot be seen by the naked eye unless we use microscope. That's why it's said to be what? Microscopic. And it is also heterotrophic. That means cannot make its own food. It depends on other animals for their feeding. And the type of reproduction is called asexual reproduction. Asexual. That means binary fission. Binary fission. This is the type of reproduction in bacteria. Also, bacteria has no distinct nucleus, as we have seen here. No nucleus here. It is just a cell with chromosome, ribosomes. But a clear nucleus like this one is not in the bacteria. Then kingdom Protista, this one include amoeba, Euglena, Chlamydomonas. These are all under kingdom Protista. This group of living organisms, they have characteristics. They have true nucleus. That's why it's called what? Eukaryotic. Or eukaryotes. They are known as eukaryotes because they have true nucleus. This is the example. Because amoeba is under this kingdom. And they are microscopic. That means very small. Their body is made up of one cell. The body is made up of one cell. That's why it's called single cell. And most of them, they live in water. That's why they are characterized as aquatic. The third kingdom, fungi, the third kingdom, fungi, it includes mushroom, yeast, all this. And their characteristics are, they are multicellular. The body is made up of many cells, and that means they are eukaryotes, and many other characteristics. The last one, not the last, plantae, kingdom plantae, the body is made up of many cells. That's why they are characterized as multicellular, and their cell is known as eukaryotic cells, and they are autotrophic. Autotrophic, that means they make their food by themselves. They don't locomote. The last kingdom is Animalia. They are characterized by multicellular, and they are heterotrophic. They do locomote. And this one include human beings, include insects, amphibians, which they represented by frogs, reptiles represented by lizard, many animals under this kingdom. So we want to see the example of classification, because we learned about the units of classification of man. The human being. If you are starting classification of living organisms, you start by the largest unit, which is the kingdom. This human being is under the kingdom Animalia. So the kingdom Animalia. Coming to the phylum, Chordata. That means they are characterized by having notochord. Notochord is a thread-like substance in the backbone. Some of the living organisms, they will be having that notochord throughout their lives, but some animals, the notochord disappears in certain stages. So the presence of that notochord classify man as chordata. Then coming to the class. Class Mammalia. Mammalia because they breastfeed young ones. Order. Primate. Primate, that means they have high brain, that means large brain. Then coming to family. Family, Hominidae. Hominidae. Genus, Homo. Species, Sapiens. Sapiens. Have you seen? This is the example of classification. So in classification, you start by the largest one. Another example of maize, this classification of maize. Kingdom, if this is a maize, the kingdom is planted. Then the division. We said the phylum is used for animal, while division for plant. The division is angiospermy. Angiospermy. That means plant with seeds. Then the class. What type of seed is this? Is monocot. So monocotyledone. Monocotyledone. Order. The order here is Comolinales. Then family, Poaceae. That means cereal, grassy cereal. Then the genus is Z. The species here is maize. So this is the classification. That means it is under the plant and it has seeds. These seeds, it is monocot. That means when you try to divide it, you cannot divide it. And it is Comolinales. Poaceae, that means like grassy cereal. Genus is Z, species is maize. So up to here, we are done with our lesson of today, where we learn about the units of classification and we explain the kingdom system until I gave some example of how to do the classification while using the units of classification, starting from the largest one, kingdom, and end by the smallest one, which is species. Now, I'm going to copy the exercise on the board. the field of biology that deals with classifying organisms is called Number 2, the largest taxon is called the largest while the smallest one is called the last one, the basic biological unit in classifying system. The basic biological unit in classification system. Classification system is the then a species are organism that can interpret the species are organisms that can interbreed and produce offspring. That's all. Thanks a lot.